Facebook recently announced a second round of layoffs. Around 10,000 people are getting let go this time around, in addition to the 11,000 that were let go back in November. Between this and the company closing most of their job openings, this means that a lot of people who normally would be working at Facebook now won't be. I worked at Facebook for a significant portion of my career. If you're wondering what to do with your career now that Facebook is no longer an option, I figured it could help for me to share some of the reasons around why I left, as well as how those reasons have panned out over the course of my career. To share some extra context about my time there, I started as a software engineering intern after my third year of college. I got a return offer to join full-time at the end of my internship, and then I accepted that offer and started full-time after I finished my final year of school. I then worked there for several years, got promoted from a junior to a senior engineer, and then left in January 2019. I was paid well, had a supportive manager, and a solid team. There are a lot of reasons on paper why I wouldn't have left, but I did. And so here are 4 reasons why I decided to make that decision. Reason number 1, I was overly specialized. At companies which are large, like Facebook, the company gets value out of each person having particular areas of expertise. Get a bunch of people to be experts at different parts of a product, join all of that together, and then all the different parts of the product, and then therefore the product itself, are expertly made. As an example, I was an Android engineer, but that's too broad of a description. Instead of working across all of Facebook's Android apps, such as the Facebook app itself, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, I worked just on the Messenger app, and I didn't work on the whole Messenger app. I worked in what we called visual messaging, so anything to do with editing photos or videos, sending or receiving emojis, GIFs, or stickers, that sort of thing. The majority of my work was within this, sort of narrow window. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm proud of that work, and a lot of it was quite challenging, but it was also quite hyper-focused. There are so many more facets of being an Android engineer that I just didn't get to touch while I was at Facebook, or got to touch very little, such as dealing with network interruptions, working with the local database, dealing with notifications. At the time, I definitely could not have built an Android app from scratch, and I wanted to be able to. I even dug up an email from an interview I did with another company while I was still at Facebook, and part of that feedback said, "You're pretty specialized," which is common for engineers who have worked at one highly demanding company. I already had this feeling, and having it spelled out for me really hammered it home. So how did this reason pan out over the course of my career? It actually beat my expectations. At my job immediately after Facebook, I single-handedly built out the first version of the company's Android app from scratch, and was also able to share my input beyond just the Android realm. Where I was more surprised, in a good way, was how much interaction and experience I got outside of purely engineering. I've now worked with so many different roles: sales, advertising, recruiting, CEOs, and other executives, and I don't think I would have had the opportunity to work with all those different functions at Facebook unless I was a VP or director of something. Second, I finally believed in myself. This one is more about feelings and self-confidence, but this was huge for me. You may have heard of a term called imposter syndrome. Turning to my sticky notes functioning as a dictionary here, imposter syndrome is defined as a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments, and has a persistent, internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. I didn't believe in myself for a long time. I was just an okay student and never felt like I really had command over the material I was learning, unlike how it seemed for so many of my peers. When I got my Facebook internship, I felt like I'd somehow tricked them into giving me a job. I felt the same when they gave me a return offer to come join full-time, and had countless conversations with my peers about how I'd never make it to being a senior engineer, and they would just fire me before I even had the opportunity. I'm not really sure how or when it happened, but at some point, I looked around and was like, I've been here for several years. A lot of people trust me and tell me they enjoy working with me. I can solve pretty tough problems, whether that involves other people or if it's just me working solo. Maybe it's not a mistake that I'm here after all. I think part of the reason why I was at Facebook was just to prove to myself that I could do it, just be there and belong. There were, of course, other reasons why I was there, but there was this feeling of inadequacy that I was constantly fighting. Once that weight was lifted, I felt like I could do anything including leaving the comforts of this company and dealing with whatever challenges were thrown at me in my career afterwards. I've since worked in a variety of different environments, and I think this self-confidence has worked wonders for me. I think that confidence is helping me keep going every day, in combination with realizing that work is much less about trudging through problems alone and much more about how you work and collaborate with others to solve problems. This is true even when I'm faced with something and have no idea where to start. And trust me, I may have a solid amount of experience under my belt at this point, but this still happens to me all the time. Now, I don't think it's necessary to work at Facebook to get to this point, and I also don't think working at Facebook guarantees that you'll have the same experience that I did. I think what was crucial was working in a place where, the resulting product was good and well made, in combination with working on a team that is kind, supportive, and welcoming. I think having these two together is possible in both big and small companies, and honestly, I was lucky that my team at Facebook was a good one. Reason 3, I wanted to work on a product that I was super passionate about. I definitely used Messenger a lot to communicate with my friends, but this concept of messaging wasn't something that drove me day to day in my personal life. At the time, I had this this feeling that I wanted to work in a space that allowed me to mix what I cared about in my life outside of work along with my day-to-day work. So what did I do outside of work? I spent and continue to spend a lot of my free time on fitness. I strength train regularly. I ran a marathon when I was in high school, which I wouldn't recommend, by the way, and I play Ultimate Frisbee competitively. I knew that if I ever got a chance to work in the fitness space, I'd jump at it. And that's exactly what happened. There was an opening at a tiny fitness startup in San Francisco called Fitbod, and they were building a strength training app where the app would give you algorithmically generated workouts based on your experience and workout history. I interviewed with the team and spoke to the CEO, Alan, several times. I remember a particularly fun conversation we had where we got pizza and beer and we're, sort of just feeling each other out. And I ended up getting the chance to work there. I definitely appreciated getting to work in a space that I was so passionate about. And I'm also, proud of the work that, the team and I were able to produce. I also formed a lot of great relationships at that company, and I still occasionally talk and hang out with some of my former coworkers. So, I don't want to diminish any of that. That being said, it's kind of exhausting to care that much about what you're working on. I don't think you need to be, completely disconnected from and dispassionate about work, but having a mix of both personal and professional together can be tough. And, it can be nice to not have to think about work at all once you've finished for the day. At least currently, I've switched to the approach of working where maybe I'm not as personally invested in the product, but I am super invested in and motivated by the team around me. And while what we're solving may not be the most exciting problem in the world for my personal life, it is a problem that is large, is tangible, is challenging, and a lot of people's lives will be improved from us solving it. The fourth and final reason: more money. Oh boy, this one's fun. Okay, so first off, I want to be clear. Facebook pays people well. Like, very well. People in tech, particularly at these large companies like Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, even as entry-level employees. Plus, you get shares of public stock, which you can turn around and sell for cash. That together is a lot of money. On the other hand, with smaller companies, there's this different game at play. Your base salary is maybe the same, but probably it's a little lower than what you would get at one of those larger companies. And you get stock, but that stock isn't available for public trading. So even when the stock is yours, so to speak, you can't just turn around and sell it immediately. In exchange for what's effectively a decrease in immediate compensation, you get way more shares at a smaller company than you would at a larger company, like orders of magnitude of difference. Instead of getting, say, $1 million when you sell off your stock that you accumulated from working 4 years at a larger company like Facebook, instead, you could get $10 million, $15 million, 20, maybe even more When you sell off shares from working at a smaller company, just because the pure volume, the total number of shares that you get at a smaller company is so much more than what you would get at a larger company like Facebook. Particularly, the earlier you join the smaller company, the more shares that you'll get. That being said, most startups don't succeed. And by succeed, I mean IPOing or, getting acquired by a company that has already gone through an IPO. So even though, you have all of these shares, it's very possible that all those shares end up being worth nothing. You can hope to, tip the odds a little bit in your favor by, making sure you know the business and getting to the team really well before you decide to join a smaller company. But even a startup that has all the right signs could still eventually fail. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. Working at a large company can give you a combination of salary and stock that allows you to live very comfortably. On the other hand, working at a small company also generally means you'll be able to live comfortably, though maybe not with the ability to splurge as often as someone at a big company can do. That being said, by working at a smaller company, you're taking the, not actually that serious gamble that you could have a sudden windfall of money one day and, be able to buy a house and retire early. However unlikely that may be, it's certainly much safer than going to the casino or, day trading stocks. That about wraps up my main reasons for leaving Facebook, as well as, what I think of those decisions today. Everyone, has their own way of approaching their careers, and I don't think you necessarily need to agree with all of my decisions or reasoning. What I do hope is, that this helps make your own journey of exploring your career and dealing with these kinds of questions and scenarios. Hopefully that all becomes a little bit easier. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos about tech and the tech industry in general. See you later.